Do you remember when Robin Williams died? Does anybody remember? It was very sad. It was right around the time I got to San Francisco. They said he committed suicide. Maybe. They said he was very depressed, that he just couldn't handle his depression. He committed suicide. Okay. In San Francisco, by the way. Okay. You know, the thing about Robin Williams is that he was a master of different voices. He could do all of these impersonations and he could make all of these different highs, lows. He had different cadences, he had different speeds at which he would talk. It was one of those things where I never in my entire life heard anybody say anything about Robin Williams being racist or being prejudiced when he would do his comedy and he would make modulations or alterations with his voice. But Robin Williams died right before they started talking to us about the crypto economy, didn't he? And they never talked to us the entire time they were rolling out the crypto economy about what actually is a biometric account. I have contended for years that it is alarming to me that the most comprehensive information one can get publicly about what a biometric account is exists in countries, at least one specifically, that is like that right on, that are frequently discussed as being sanctionable, if not somehow worthy of scorn, including at the highest levels of leadership, because presumably they're engaged in some sort of corruption or even financing terrorism. See, voices and funny voices and comedy involving different kinds of cadences and rhythms, different accents, those are all biometrics too. Weird facial expressions when you're frowning, when you're smiling, right? Maybe you can do, like, if you could do one eyebrow, right? I can't do that, but some people can do that. They can raise one eyebrow and then they can, like, do things like it, crinkle their forehead, right? Those are biometrics. So, for instance, if they're taking somebody else's biometric account and they're putting it over yours so they can use your life and what you do to launder stuff or to steal from people, or they're doing things that are completely inappropriate, like, I don't know, taking a woman who's working is in some sort of hospice care role at an old folks home and has 4 children and giving her the biometric account of a woman that's certified in industrial techniques that may require her to keep track of and report on radiological energy sources, like nuclear materials. And if they like swap those accounts out, you know what happens? You can actually start looking like the person whose account they put over yours. For a while, I would wake up in the morning and it wasn't always a nano attack, right? Sometimes I started looking like people I was investigating. How was it that when I requested information on or assistance with investigating crime, the people I requested information on ended up getting access to my reports? And they started twisting the reports. And not only that, they got access to things in my life, other things, like my pension. See, I had two pension funds set up. I worked at this third party provider of employment services for people that were supposed to have mental illness. I can talk about it. It's up to me to decide whether or not I want to disclose that. I was presumed or told I had a mental illness, even though I told them that I understood I was being targeted by what I later identified, or what is now called directed energy weapons, and they were trying to get me to agree to cooperate with illegal activity. I told them that that's what was happening, but they said, no, you're mentally ill. And then after some time, I went to this employment agency that's called CVE. Everybody knew it as CVE. And they gave me one job where I was supposed to like help out the guy who was involved in tech. And then they gave me another job where I was supposed to make spreadsheets with people's informations. And at some point, I actually ended up getting a job with the Department of Public Health, but I was still working through this third party contractor called CVE. Now, nobody told us about the national, the was it the National Industrial Standards Testing Board? Nobody told us about that. Nobody told us about what a cyber vulnerability was. Nobody told us about that. Nobody told us that they were going to tell us they were going to open up pension accounts for us through this third-party provider and get information from us, including paperwork where we put down the names of our beneficiaries, and that they were going to take a certain amount out and put it toward that pension fund. And then all of a sudden, a year later, CVE closes down. It's mysterious. There's no one to contact. There's no lawyer to follow up with. And then they just decide that they're going to transfer everything to RAMS. CVE gets transferred to RAMS. And nobody ever follows up with us about what happened to that pension fund. And every friggin' email I receive and send for years is back encoded with what could potentially be references to actual alleged CVE certificates that have very special names that describe scenarios ostensibly about some ability to hack a program, but are always put in a serialized manner that speaks to events that me and the people that used to work at that third-party provider used to talk about with each other. Stuff we would bring up in therapy, or when we were talking to people that were supposed to be our peers, we would talk about with each other. They took stuff. See, they cybernetically enhanced us. And they wanted to test what it would take to break through certain aspects of that cybernetic programming. So they used directed energy weapons in order to attack us. And then when we went to therapy and we discussed our trauma, somehow somebody got a hold of our notes, our patient notes, what we discussed in therapy, including while we were hallucinating, including while we were in excruciating pain. They called it hallucination. And then they made vulnerability certificates. They keep track of them, you know. They update them. They don't talk to you about what you're experiencing. They tell you. They program you. But the problem is that they've been using these programs in a automation. And I've contended for years that when you try to engage a form of automation like that, that has embedded in it strategically placed acts of sabotage, and then tell everybody to sublimate it and just run it as an inherent subroutine in their life and just keep going through the same loops and keep going through the same cycles, it accrues. All of the economic events you're involved in, like, I don't know, going to therapy, getting your prescription filled, going to group therapy, going to work, going to trainings for work if you've got work. Then there's the social events you have that you may or may not go to. Re-upping your transportation card that has the specific disability designation. All of those economic events accrue. And you pay for them one way or another. Now, if they want us to pay for it because now we're in the government, because we're on government assistance, and there's a bunch of private insurance companies that lied and they want to divert their medical insurance liability into other kinds of insurance that sound sexier, I'm sorry. The whole thing is I called them out, a month after September 11th? Within a month after September 11th, I already had the charges, baby, and I've been following it up on it the whole time. And you're all guilty. All 10 of those guys are guilty. Some of them died, but they're all guilty, and I've proven it. Right? So when are you going to get real about the crypto economy? Every time you use a CVE certificate, and every time you steal my life, and you refuse to respond to the charges at hand, and somebody else uses a CVE certificate, it's pension fraud. And it wasn't just me. There was an entire group of people that were experimented on. And the thing is, a couple years later, I'm in Houston, and I got hooked up with a different group of people. And even if you got those people you said were mentally ill to agree to play whatever role they're playing now, right? Peer counselor, administrative assistant, maybe one got promoted to a senior clerk. Even if you got them to agree, that second group you set up, we weren't talking about people that would accept that their life was supposed to be programmed into being nothing more than a mule to take what prescription for drugs from one place to another. You set it up. It was 100% strategic, 100% illegal, and apparently France just busted 29 people for exactly what it is. You torture people to set up the crypto economy, and you're using it to finance acts of terrorism, including domestic terrorists. Domestic terrorists, including domestic terrorists that have infiltrated the government, that are currently masquerading as if they're politicians, senators, congresspeople, in federal agencies. And I'm not even talking about your gangland warfare yet, right? I'm not even talking about how you guys organize. When are you going to admit it? Because somebody else already knows. See, when I call and I say, I'm concerned this might be used in a terrorist attack, and you don't get back to me until your insurance salesman calls me, you got a big problem. I'm not paying a bunch of kickbacks to nuclear terrorists. Get it?